So I'm here with Kelly Isola, and we're going to tell you about the conference theme and the workshop she'll be doing at our Southwest Region Conference. Kelly, we're going to talk about paradox, right? Tell us a little bit about what that means for us.
Yes, we are. We are going to talk about harnessing the power of differences. So a paradox is essentially, it's two truths that are opposite, but they need each other. So they need each other, meaning they're interdependent. They need each other over the long term for the health of the organism, which would be a person or an organization, a life system. So a paradox is really an energy system that's at work that requires us to think in both and. For instance, we oftentimes are challenged by which is better. Should we be active and doing and being involved, or should we rest? And of course, the answer is yes. Like, both are really important. So it's not an either or. It's recognizing that we need both, and we're going to kind of do a dance between both.
Okay, so you've described the energies of paradox or polarities as sort of an infinity loop, which is different than like the pendulum swinging, because the pendulum eventually will stop and come to rest, right?
Yes, but an infinity, a polarity, or a paradox never stops. It's a living energy system.
Okay.
So the energy system of moving between activity and rest is, you need them both. They're both positive values, and there's an upside to both, but there's also a downside when you overdo activity or you overdo resting. So it's not even about a balance. It's a living energy system that you're always moving through. And so rest is part of the solution for activity, but you don't want to hang out there forever. So you're eventually going to move back into being active. The same is true for things like, which is more important, care for self or care for others? The answer really is yes. They're both equally important. It's just how we are moving through the energy of that, how we're moving through the understanding of, applying the upside to both values and not getting stuck in the downside of one or the other. So now I have sirens. Can you hear the sirens?
Yeah, I can hear the sirens. It's part of that moving energy of life, though, isn't it?
So another word for paradox is polarity, dilemma, tension, conflict, wicked problems. There are multiple living energy systems that are alive in us and that we live in. And so when you look at an organization, when you're part of an organization like a spiritual community, a church, there are these paradoxes, these polarities that are inherent in the system. And they're actually inherent in any faith tradition and any religion. If you look at the Tao, right, we have the yin-yang symbol, the black and white. In Abrahamic faith traditions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, have the polarity of justice and mercy. And that's just one of many, many. But what we're going to do throughout the course of the workshop and our time together is actually experiential exercises to learn to recognize and notice and what's alive within us for our own health and well-being, so that we're not thinking, and this is more important or that, and learn how to do both and. But we're also going to take a look at the organization that we're in, our spiritual community, our church, because there are polarities that are alive within an organization that can keep us stuck if we don't leverage them really well. And that one of those that's very, very much alive, that most all of us can quickly identify with, is the polarity of tradition and innovation. And the question again is, which is more important? And the answer is yes. But we can get stuck or mired in one or the other, and there are downsides to either one. What's most important is what we're going to do is learn to harness the differences, the power of the differences. We don't want the same. We don't want balance. We want harnessing the differences, harnessing the energy, because what we talk about in leveraging polarities and harnessing this ancient wisdom is that, one, seeing is relieving. First and foremost, when you can see something is a paradox or a polarity, an unsolvable, eternal dilemma, it's very relieving. You're like, oh, okay, so it's not this or that. It's both and. And then the next step is learning how to live in that ongoing, eternal, unsolvable tension, which is the second part, which is seeing is changing. So seeing is relieving, seeing is changing. And what we mean by that is when we can see these energy systems, we can move through change. We can harness the power in the differences and use them collectively together to thrive, to grow, to move through change efficiently and to have it be effective and, most importantly, sustainable. What's up in the world of religion and church is that change is it, that everything is changing. Everything is up for grabs, so to speak. The church as we know it for centuries is dying and or dead. So we have to learn how to move through these energy systems. And then the last piece is seeing is loving. So seeing is relieving. We take a deep breath when we can see this both and rather than either or. Seeing is changing, right? The way that we can actually see someone different when we're in conflict is the way that we can, have a solution around conflict or some peace of mind around conflict is actually to see the other person differently. And then we all kind of go, ah. So seeing is changing. And then the last piece of seeing is loving, because ultimately that's what we're working with, and that's what we're working towards is being loving and thriving and embracing and knowing that everyone belongs and having empathy and having compassion so that we are living the best of who we are individually and collectively. So that's the ultimately the power in harnessing the differences and harnessing paradox is that it's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 15 or 20 or 100. The sky is the limit. And from acknowledging and seeing and identifying these paradoxes and polarities, we can actually then tease out specific action steps, strategic plans to keep us moving forward, to keep us in action, to keep us moving towards being our highest and best self.
Well, that sounds great. I love the idea of like the moving energies and then coming up with an action plan. So even though
Right.
it's not definite, it gives us a direction.
Absolutely. You create specific action steps to harness the best of both values in the paradox.
Well, great. It sounds exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. And I hope everybody else who has already registered is excited. And those of you who haven't, please register so that you can be there. Registration ends September 1st. The conference begins October 1st, and hope to see you all there because this is going to be great. Thanks, Kelly.
Me too.
Thank you. I'm going to stop recording now.
Okay.